You watch, fascinated and horrified, as other people do the same thing. Men urinate against walls. Children squat in the open. Chamber pots are emptied wherever convenient. There is no sewage system, no plumbing, no understanding that human waste spreads disease. Everything just goes into the ground, where it mixes with animal waste and rotting food scraps and mud. When it rains, which is often, it all washes into the streams where people get their drinking water. This is why disease is constant in medieval Europe. Dysentery, typhoid, cholera, intestinal parasites. Everyone has worms. Everyone has fleas and lice. Infections are common and often fatal because there are no antibiotics. A simple cut can kill you if it gets infected. Childbirth kills women regularly. Tooth decay leads to abscesses that spread to the brain. Life here is a daily battle against invisible enemies. You walk to the well, thinking about otter. Hey guys! Tonight we are embarking on something special. A full 2-hour journey through medieval Europe. Yeah, you heard that right. 2 hours. Most of you will not make it past hour 1, and honestly, that is the point. Imagine standing in a field outside London in the year 1347. The air smells like wood smoke and animal dung and wet earth. You hear church bells in the distance, ringing out the hour of none, which means it is 3 in the afternoon. The sky above you is gray, because of course it is. This is England. The grass beneath your feet is muddy and thick with morning rain. In the distance, you see a village, small and clustered, maybe 30 buildings total. Smoke rises from holes in thatched roofs. You have no phone, no wallet, no identification. You are wearing rough woolen clothing that itches against your skin. And you have just traveled back 700 years. Horses falling, crushing their riders. Knights drowning in mud, unable to rise under the weight of armor. The smell came next. Blood and death. Wounded horses thrashing. Men crying for their mothers. Hours of fighting, exhaustion so complete you could barely lift your weapon. But you had to keep fighting, because stopping meant dying. And after, when the battle was won, the real horror began. Walking among the wounded, killing enemy survivors because prisoners are expensive, stripping bodies of anything valuable. He lost his fingers to a French sword. He is lucky it was only fingers. He saw friends lose limbs, lose eyes, die of infected wounds weeks after battle. He came home with enough money to buy a small piece of land. But he paid for it with pieces of himself. He still has nightmares. He still wakes, reaching for a weapon that is not there. Would he do it again? You ask carefully. He thinks for a long moment. For enough money, yes. So before you get comfortable, and I mean really comfortable because we are in for the long haul, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. I see you, 3 a.m. squad. For those using this for sleep, I have designed the pacing to gradually slow over our 2 hours together. Hour 1 will keep you engaged. Hour 2 starts the descent. And by the final sections, well, sweet dreams. Now dim those lights. Set your sleep timer if you are wise. Maybe turn on that fan for white noise. And let us ease into tonight's marathon journey together. The moment you arrive, the first thing that hits you is the smell. We talk about this a lot when we imagine time travel, but we never really prepare ourselves for it. Medieval Europe smells like a farm. Actually, it smells like 1,000 farms compressed into every square mile, because what else is there for a race with no land and no trade? War at least pays. But the glory that nobles talk about, the honor, the chivalry, that is for them. For common soldiers, war is just butchery with pennies at the end. You return to the feast. The contrast is jarring. Inside, people are laughing, eating, drinking. Musicians play cheerful songs. Young William probably dreams of glory tonight. The old soldier outside knows the truth, but cannot change it. And Sir Edmund at the high table sends men to fight and die, because that is what lords do. Medieval warfare is not romantic. It is brutal, efficient violence. And everyone here accepts it as normal. This is just how the world works. The morning after the feast, you wake with a headache from too much ale. Outside, the village is busy with morning activities. But today you notice something you have been seeing without really paying attention. The women. They are everywhere, working constantly. Animal waste, human waste, rotting vegetables, tanning leather, smoking meat, unwashed bodies, and damp wool. All of it mixing together into a scent that would make a modern person gag. But you are not modern anymore. Not for the next 2 hours anyway. You take your first tentative steps toward the village. The mud sucks at your feet. You are wearing simple leather shoes, more like soft boots really, and they offer almost no protection from the cold wetness seeping through. Your toes are already numb. It is September, and England is preparing for winter. The harvest is coming in. You see figures in distant fields, bent over, working. Even from here, you can tell their movements are slow, methodical, exhausted. As you walk closer to the village, you notice there are no straight roads. Everything curves and winds, following the natural contours of the land. The path you are on is not paved. It is just dirt, worn down by feet and cartwheels and hooves. You realize their labor is what actually holds this entire society together. Maud is up before dawn every single day. By the time the sun rises, she has already accomplished more than most people do in a full morning. But her work is invisible. It is expected. No one praises her for it. No one notices unless it is not done. You follow her through a day, really watching. She starts with fire maintenance. The fire must never go out completely, because starting a new fire is difficult. You need flint and steel and dry tinder and patience. Much easier to keep embers alive. Maud feeds the fire carefully, adding just enough wood. While the fire builds, she begins making bread. The dough was prepared yesterday and has been rising overnight. She kneads it again, shapes it into loaves, and sets them near the fire to rise. Later, she will bake them, either on a heated stone or in the communal village oven, which requires paying the Lord a fee. Everything costs something. Deep ruts run down the middle, where wagons have passed through mud. You step carefully around them. The village, as you approach, reveals itself slowly. The first building you see is small, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet, with walls made of wattle and daub. That means woven sticks plastered with bod and dung and straw, all mixed together and left to harden. The roof is thatch, thick and golden brown, overhanging the walls to keep rain from dissolving the mud. There is one small window, no glass, just an opening with a wooden shutter propped open. Smoke drifts out from inside. You hear voice. Someone laughs. It sounds surprisingly normal, surprisingly human, and it reminds you that these are real people, not museum exhibits or movie characters. They lived entire lives in this place, loved and fought and worried about their children, and argued about land boundaries and gossiped about their neighbors. Just like you do. Just 700 years earlier, everything has strings attached. Next comes milking the cow. Maud takes a wooden bucket and three-legged stool out to where the cow is tethered. She sits and milks with practiced efficiency. Streams of milk hit the bucket in steady rhythm. Some will be drunk fresh. Some will be made into cheese. Nothing is wasted. Then comes water. Multiple trips to the well throughout the day. Water for cooking. Water for washing, though that is minimal. Water for the animals. Each bucket is heavy. Maud makes perhaps 10 trips in a day. Her shoulders and back must ache constantly, though she never complains. While doing these tasks, Maud is also spinning. She carries a drop spindle with her, a wooden shaft with a weight on the bottom. Whenever she has a free moment, even while walking, she spins wool into thread. The motion is automatic, practiced for so many years that her hands do it without conscious thought. A woman emerges from the building. She is maybe 30 years old, though she looks 50 by modern standards. Her face is deeply lined. Her teeth, you notice when she smiles at someone inside, are brown, and several are missing. She wears a long dress made of undyed wool, grayish-brown, belted at the waist with rope. Over it is an apron, stained with everything. Her hair is covered by a simple cloth tied under her chin. She carries a wooden bucket. She sees you. Her eyes widen slightly. Strangers are rare in medieval villages. Everyone knows everyone, and outsiders are viewed with suspicion and curiosity in equal measure. She does not speak to you. Not yet. She simply stares, evaluating. Are you a threat? Are you a beggar? Are you someone important? Your clothing gives no clear answer. You are dressed like a commoner, but you are clean. Relatively clean anyway. And you walk with a confidence that does not quite fit. You raise your hand in greeting. By the end of a year, she will have produced enough thread to weave cloth for the family's clothing. You watch as Agnes, the woman from the well, deals with a different challenge. She is pregnant, obviously so, probably 7 or 8 months along. This is her 6th pregnancy. She lost 2 children in infancy. 3 others survived. This pregnancy shows on her face. She looks tired beyond measure. Childbirth in medieval Europe is dangerous. There are no hospitals, no doctors for common people, no understanding of germs or infection. Women give birth at home, attended by midwives, who rely on experience rather than medical knowledge. Many women die in childbirth, or from infections afterward. Many babies die at birth, or in the first year. This is so common that it is almost expected. The village midwife is a woman named Edith. She is older, perhaps 50, which makes her ancient by medieval standards. She has delivered most of the children born in Ashford for the past 20 years. She nods, barely, then continues toward a well in the center of the village. You follow at a distance, trying not to draw more attention, though you already feel eyes on you from other buildings. Faces appear in doorways. Children stop playing to watch you pass. A dog barks, then thinks better of it, and retreats. The well is stone, ancient-looking even by medieval standards, probably built centuries ago by Romans or Saxons. The woman ties her bucket to a rope and lowers it down. You hear the splash echo up from deep below. She hauls it back up, arm over arm, muscles straining. The bucket is heavy. Water sloshes over the sides. She does not waste a drop, though. Water is work. Around the well, the village opens up. This is the center, the heart of the community. Maybe 15 buildings surround this small open space. Most are homes. One is larger, probably a communal building, maybe where villagers gather for meetings or celebrations. She knows herbs that can ease pain. She knows prayers to say for safe delivery. She knows how to turn a baby that is positioned wrong. She has seen everything, every complication, every tragedy. You talk with Edith in the afternoon. She is straightforward about the realities. Half of women die before they reach old age, and many of those deaths are related to childbirth. Having many children is necessary because so many die, but each pregnancy is a risk. Rich women have slightly better chances because they eat better and can rest more. Poor women work until the day they go into labor and return to work days later. But women have power too, Edith tells you. Hidden power. A A woman runs the household. She controls the daily resources. She decides what food is prepared and how it is distributed. She manages the children's education. She spins and weaves and makes the clothing. She grows herbs and treats minor illnesses. Without her labor, the household collapses. Another has a different structure, more solid, seen on the bottom half. That one has a cross carved above the door. The church. You notice something else too. There are animals everywhere. Pigs rooting in the mud. Chickens scratching near doorways. A goat tied to a post. These animals are not pets. They are wealth. They are foodies. They are survival. Every family keeps as many as they can manage, and they roam freely because fences are expensive and labor-intensive. The church bell rings again. Everyone stops. Every single person, no matter what they are doing, pauses and curses themselves. You watch as the woman by the well, still holding her bucket, makes the sign of the cross and bows her head. Lips move in silent prayer. Then, just as quickly, everyone returns to work. This happens 8 times a day. 8 times every single day. The rhythm of medieval life is dictated by those bells. You realize you have not eaten. Your stomach growls, loud in the quiet moment after the bell. And then there are widows. Women whose husbands have died. A widow has some legal rights that married women do not. She might inherit property. She might run her late husband's business. But she is also vulnerable. A woman alone is easy prey. Many widows remarry quickly, not for love, but for protection and survival. Women's lives in medieval Europe are defined by work and childbirth and vulnerability. They have almost no legal power. They cannot hold office. They cannot be priests. They cannot own property once they marry, as everything becomes their husband's. The church teaches that women are inferior to men. Laws treat women as perpetual children. Yet despite all this, women survive. They work. They bear children. They maintain households. They support each other in 1,000 small ways. When Agnes goes into labor, it will be women who attend her. When a child is sick, women will share herbal remedies. You have no money. At least, none that would be recognized here. You have no trade, no skills that would be useful in this place. You are entirely dependent on the kindness of strangers, which in the medieval period is a dangerous gamble. Strangers are tolerated sometimes, but rarely welcomed. And winter is coming. Resources are tight. A man approaches you. He is older, maybe 40, which makes him elderly by medieval standards. His back is bent, not from age, but from a lifetime of labor. He wears similar clothing to the woman, undyed wool, patched in multiple places. His hands are huge and calloused, with dirt embedded so deeply under the nails that it will never come out. He looks at you with shrewd eyes. Then he speaks. His words are English, technically, but you barely understand them. Middle English is a different language, really. The accent is thick, the pronunciation strange, the vocabulary unfamiliar. You catch maybe 1 word in 3. When bread baking day comes, women will gather and exchange news and sauterity. As evening falls, you watch Maud finish her day. She feeds the family dinner. She settles children for sleep. She spins a bit more by firelight. She mends a tear in Gawain's tunic. She finally sits down near the fire, and for just a moment, she rests. Then she banks the fire for the night. And tomorrow, she will do it all again. This is the reality of women's lives here. Hard beyond modern comprehension. Dangerous, unrecognized, essential. Your 9th day in Ashford brings news that changes everything. A merchant arrives from Bristol, a port city on the coast. He brings stories that make everyone in the village stop working to listen. The sickness has reached England. The plague that swept through Italy and France has crossed the Channel. People are dying in the port towns, dying quickly, dying in numbers that are difficult to comprehend. The merchant sits near the well. He repeats himself, slower, and you think he is asking where you come from. You point vaguely north, which could mean anywhere. He nods, seems to accept this, then asks something else. You do not understand. He sighs, makes a gesture that clearly means follow me, and walks toward one of the larger buildings. You follow, because what else can you do? Inside, the building is dark. There are no windows here. The only light comes from the doorway behind you, and a small fire burning in the center of the room. There is no chimney. The smoke just races and eventually finds its way out through the thatch. Your eyes water immediately. The floor is dirt, packed hard, covered with old rushes and straw. You smell mold and damp and smoke and bodies. This is how most people live in medieval Europe. Darkness, smoke, cold, damp, no privacies. Entire families sleep in one room, often in one bed. Animals sometimes come inside at night for warmth. Fleas and lice are constant companions. Villagers gather around him in a loose circle. He is nervous, sweating despite the cool autumn air. He speaks quickly, his words tumbling over each other. In Bristol, he says, the sickness appeared 3 weeks ago. A sailor from a ship that came from France. The sailor died within days. Then others started falling ill. It begins with fever and chills. Then come the swellings, lumps that appear in the neck, armpits, groin. They call them buboes, and they are agonizing. The lumps grow huge, sometimes as large as apples. They turn black. The skin around them goes dark. People become delirious with pain and fever. Some people die within 2 days of the first symptoms. Others linger for a week, suffering. Almost no one recovers. The merchant's own brother caught it. He watched him die, helpless to do anything. His brother's wife tried to nurse him and caught it herself. She died too. The bodies are piling up faster than they can be buried. Disease is everywhere. Life expectancy is maybe 35 years, and that is, if you survive childhood, which many do not. The man gestures to a bench near the fire. You sit. He speaks to someone in the shadows, and a younger woman appears with a wooden bowl. Inside is pottage, a thick stew that is the staple food of medieval peasants. Grain and vegetables, maybe a bit of meat if you are lucky. All boiled together into a mush. It is served with a chunk of dark bread, heavy and dense. You eat because you are starving, and it tastes better than you expected. Simple, filling. Still, you would give anything for salt. The village, you learn over the next few hours, is called Ashford. Not the Ashford you might know from modern Kent, but a small, mostly forgotten settlement that will disappear from maps within 2 centuries. Right now, though, in 1347, it is home to maybe 150 people. Everyone here is related to everyone else, either by blood or marriage. In Bristol, they are digging mass graves, just throwing corpses in, because there is no time for individual funerals. The priests are overwhelmed. Some priests are dying too, because they tend to the sick. The stench in the city is horrific. Fear is everywhere. People are fleeing into the countryside, which means they are spreading the sickness further. No one knows what causes it. The church says it is God's punishment for sin. Priests urge people to pray more, repent, give money to the church. Some people blame the Jews, claiming they poisoned wells. In some cities, Jewish communities are being attacked. This is happening despite the Pope himself saying that Jews are dying of the plague too. Physicians have theories. They talk about bad air, miasmas, corrupt humors in the body. They recommend bloodletting, which makes patients weaker. They suggest carrying flowers or herbs to ward off the bad air. They advise avoiding bathing because it opens the pores, None of it works. The web of family connections is so tight that explaining it would take hours. The man who brought you inside is named Godwin. You learn his name because a child says it. A boy of maybe 8 years old, with a runny nose and bare feet despite the cold. Godwin is a freeman, which means he is not a serf. He owns his land, sort of. Actually, he rents it from the lord who owns the manor 3 miles away. But he is not bound to that land by law. He can leave if he wants. Most people cannot. Godwin's home is divided into 2 areas, though there are no walls separating them. One end is where the family lives. The other end is where they keep their animals in winter. Right now, in September, the animals are still outside, but you can see the stalls waiting. 2 cows, several pigs, chickens roosting in the rafters. The smell is going to be incredible come December. His wife, whose name you think is Maud, though the accent makes it hard to be sure, works constantly. The plague kills physicians as readily as it kills peasants. The merchant's warning is clear. Stay away from cities. Stay away from strangers. Stay away from anyone who shows symptoms. If the plague reaches your village, flee. Get as far away as possible. Do not stay to help the sick. Do not touch the bodies. Run youth. That is the only advice that seems to help. After the merchant leaves, continuing his journey northward to warn other villages, Ashford is silent. The normal sounds of work and conversation are muted. People stand in small groups, talking quietly. Fear is a tangible presence, heavy in the air. Godwin calls a meeting that evening in the open area by the church. Most of the village attends. The discussions are tense. What should they do? Some argue for immediately stopping all contact with outsiders. Close the village to travelers. Post guards on the roads. Others say that is impossible. They need to go to market. They need to deliver rents to the manor. You watch her for an hour, and she does not stop moving. She feeds the fire. She stirs the pottage pot. She spins wool on a drop spindle, letting it hang and spin while she does other tasks. She sends children on errands. She argues with a neighbor through the doorway about a pig that got loose. She never ceases. Not once. The children, and there are 5 of them ranging from the 8-year-old boy to a baby, are mostly left to their own devices. The older ones watch the younger ones. They play in the mud outside, inventing games with sticks and stones. One girl, maybe 6, helps her mother by carding wool, pulling it through a wooden comb to straighten the fibers. Her hands move with practiced ease. She has been doing this since she was old enough to hold the cards. You try to make yourself useful. Godwin hands you a tool, and you realize it is a flail for threshing grain. You have seen these in museums, but never seen one. They cannot seal themselves off completely. The priest, Father John, tries to provide spiritual comfort. He reminds everyone that death comes to all people eventually. If this is God's will, they must accept it with faith. He urges prayer and confession. He will hold special services every day, asking for God's mercy. But even as he speaks, you can hear the fear in his voice. He is a young priest, and he has never faced anything like this. Some of the older villagers remember other sicknesses, dysentery outbreaks, measles that killed many children. But they admit, this sounds different. Worse, faster, more deadly. The numbers the merchant spoke of are beyond anything they have experienced. That night, in Godwin's house, the mood is somber. The children sense something is wrong and are quieter than usual. Maud clutches her youngest child close. Godwin stares into the fire, thinking thoughts he does not share. You know what is coming. He demonstrates, swinging it down onto stalks of wheat, laid on the ground, knocking the grain loose from the chaff. You try. You are terrible at it. He laughs, not unhastily, and shows you again. Slowly, You get the rhythm. Swing, hit, lift, swing, hit, lift. Your arms ache within minutes. You do this for what feels like hours, but is probably only 30 minutes before Godwin takes pity on you and gives you easier work, carrying bundles of grain. The other villagers slowly accept your presence. Strangers do show up occasionally. Traveling merchants, pilgrims on their way to Canterbury or London, laborers looking for work, beggars. You seem to fit none of these categories exactly, which makes you interesting. By evening, several people have come by to look at you, to ask Godwin questions about you, to evaluate whether you are worth worrying about. One man, younger and better dressed than the others, stands out. His clothes are dyed, a dark blue that must have cost a fortune. You know that by next summer, the Black Death will have killed perhaps a third of England's population. Whole villages will be abandoned. Fields will go unplowed because there is no one left to plow them. But you cannot tell them this. They would not believe you. Or worse, they would believe you and descend into despair. So you sit silently, watching the fire, listening to the wind outside, feeling the weight of knowledge you cannot share. The plague is coming to Ashford. You do not know exactly when. Maybe weeks, maybe months. But it is coming. The merchant's warning is just the first ripple of a wave that will wash over all of Europe. And there is nothing anyone can do to stop it. Medieval medicine cannot fight bacteria. Medieval sanitation spreads disease. Medieval society is perfectly designed to let plague spread. You think about the people you have come to know. Godwin, Maud, Agnes with her pregnancy, young Thomas at the monastery. He wears a leather belt with a knife in a sheath. His boots are tall and well made. This is the Reeve, the man appointed by the Lord to manage the village. He asks you questions in that same difficult Middle English. Where are you from? What is your trade? Why are you here? You answer as best you can, keeping your story vague. You are traveling. You got lost. You need a place to stay for a night or two. He does not believe you. You can tell, but he does not press. Instead, he tells Godwin something, and Godwin nods seriously. Later, Maud brings you more pottage and explains, in gestures and slow words, that you can sleep in the barn. Not the animal end of the house, but an actual separate barn where they store grain. It is warmer than outside, drier. You are grateful. As the sun sets, and it sets early this time of year, the village transforms. Darkness falls like a curtain, sudden and absolute. There are no streetlights, no porch lights. Will they survive? Statistics say, probably not. But these are real people, living real lives. The idea of them dying horribly from plague is unbearable. Sleep comes slowly that night. The darkness feels heavier. The future feels closer. And somewhere, moving invisibly through the English countryside, the plague advances. Unstoppable, merciless. The day after the plague warning, you seek out Edith, the village midwife and healer. If anyone might know how to fight sickness, it would be her. You find her in her garden, tending to plants that most people would consider weeds. She looks up as you approach. She has heard the news, of course. Everyone has. Her garden is surprisingly organized. Each plant is clearly marked in her mind, though there are no written labels. She points them out as you walk between the rows. This is feverfew, for headache. Now, dim those lights. Set your sleep timer if you are wise. Maybe turn on that fan for white noise. And let us ease into tonight's marathon journey together. Picture yourself standing in ancient Rome in the year 115. You are walking through the crowded streets of the Subura district. The afternoon sun beats down on the brick and marble buildings all around you. The air smells of bread baking, of fish sauce fermenting in ceramic jars. of incense drifting from a nearby temple. You hear the constant chatter of Latin voices, the clatter of wooden cartwheels on stone pavement, the distant hammering of construction workers, building yet another monument to imperial glory. And then you see her, a woman walking past you, surrounded by attendants. She is clearly wealthy, judging by the fine wool of her stola, the jewelry glinting at her throat and wrists. But what stops you? What makes you turn your head like everyone else in the street is her hair. It cascades down her back in waves of pure gold. Blonde hair, almost luminous in the Mediterranean sunlight. Hair that seems impossibly foreign in a city where nearly everyone has dark brown or black hair. You watch as she passes, and you notice something. The people in the street are not just looking. They are staring. Some with admiration, some with envy, others with something that looks like desire mixed with disdain. And you realize that this blonde hair, so different from what you are used to seeing, means something here. It carries weight. It tells a story about status and fashion, and the reach of Roman power. This moment, this simple glimpse of a blonde Roman woman, opens up an entire world of questions. Where did this fascination come from? How did Romans, who were predominantly dark-haired, develop such an obsession with blonde hair? Was it truly an obsession, or is that just our modern interpretation? And what does it tell us about Roman society, about their values, their conquests, their complex relationship with the peoples they subjugated? Tonight, we are going to answer all of these questions. We will travel from the forests of Germania to the slave markets of Phi, from the tents of Julius Caesar during the Gallic Wars to the private chambers of empresses and prostitutes alike. We will learn about the chemicals Romans used to bleach their hair, about the vast trade networks that brought blonde wigs from the far north, about the poems that praised golden locks, and the social implications of choosing to wear blonde. You settle into this journey now. You feel your body relaxing into your bed or couch. Your breathing becomes a little slower, a little deeper. The modern world with its electric lights and digital screens begins to fade. Instead, you are drifting back in time. Back to an empire that stretched from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. An empire that conquered peoples of every description and absorbed their customs, their gods, their beauty standards. The Romans were masters of cultural appropriation, though they would not have used that term. They took what they wanted from the peoples they conquered. Greek philosophy, Egyptian grain, Germanic amber, and yes, Germanic blonde hair. But why? What was it about blonde hair specifically that captured Roman imagination? To understand that, we need to go back further, back to the very first encounters between Rome and the blonde-haired peoples of the north. We need to understand what Rome looked like before it knew that such hair even existed. We need to see through Roman eyes when they first glimpsed those golden heads emerging from the forests beyond the Alps. We need to feel the shock, the fascination, the immediate desire to possess what seemed so exotic, so foreign, so utterly different from anything in their Mediterranean world. So let us begin there, at the beginning. Let us trace the story of Rome's complicated love affair with blonde hair from its very first chapter. You close your eyes now. You breathe deeply. And you let yourself drift back more than 2,000 years to a time when Rome was still learning what the world beyond its borders truly contained. You find yourself now in the year 390 before the Common Era. Rome is not yet the mighty empire that spans continents. It is still a republic, still learning how to be a major power, even in Italy. The city itself is impressive, but not yet magnificent. No Colosseum, no Pantheon, no vast imperial forums paved in marble. This is a Rome of brick and wood, of narrow streets and crowded tenements, of temples that are grand by local standards, but would seem modest compared to what comes later. The Roman people at this time are predominantly dark-haired. Mediterranean genes dominate. Brown and black hair is the norm. Olive skin, dark eyes. This is what a Roman looks like. This is what beauty means in this time and place. A Roman woman might be praised for her lustrous dark curls, for eyes like polished jet, for the classic Mediterranean features that define their world. But something is about to happen that will shake Roman confidence and begin to shift their entire worldview. News arrives in the city that sends shockwaves through the Senate and the streets. A massive army is approaching from the north, not from one of the familiar Italian tribes, not from the Greeks or Carthaginians with whom Rome has complicated relationships. No. This army comes from beyond the Alps, from lands that most Romans have heard of, only in travelers' tales and merchants' rumors. They are Gauls. The Romans call them Gauls, though they call themselves many different names, depending on their specific tribes. Senones, Boii, Insubres. These are Celtic peoples, some of whom have been migrating south from what you would know as modern France and Switzerland. And they are coming to Italy with tens of thousands of warriors, looking for land, looking for wealth, looking for a chance to carve out new territories. Now, understand something about the Celts. They are not like the Romans. They dress differently, fight differently, worship different gods, and yes, many of them have hair that no Roman has seen before. Blonde hair, red hair, light brown hair that seems almost golden in the sunlight, fair skin that burns easily in the Mediterranean climate, blue and green eyes that seem unnaturally bright. When Roman scouts first bring back reports of these northern invaders, they describe not just the military threat, but the sheer strangeness of these people. Imagine being a Roman citizen and hearing that there are men out there with hair the color of ripe wheat, with eyes like the summer skiway. It sounds almost mythological. It sounds like something from the old Greek stories about far-off lands, where everything is strange and wondrous. The Gallic army, led by a chieftain named Brennus, marches south through northern Italy. Small Roman forces are sent to slow them down, to buy time for Rome to prepare. These early skirmishes give more Romans their first glimpses of these blonde and red-haired warriors. The Gauls fight almost naked, their pale skin painted with blue woad designs, their long hair flowing behind them as they charge. They are terrifying to Roman sensibilities. Barbaric, uncivilized. But also, and this is important, fascinating. The Romans are practical people. Even in the face of danger they observe. They take mental notes. These strange physical characteristics that mark the Gauls as foreign become catalogued in Roman consciousness. Blonde hair means northern barbarian. It means warrior. It means dangerous and unpredictable. But perhaps, just perhaps, it also means something alluring in its very strangeness. The Gallic army reaches a river called the Allia, about 11 miles north of Rome. On the 18th of July, Roman forces meet them in battle, and the Romans are utterly crushed. The Gauls scatter the Roman army like chaff before wind. Survivors flee in all directions. The road to Rome lies open. Within days, the Gauls are at the gates of Rome itself. You can imagine the panic. A city that has never been conquered, never been sacked, suddenly faces an enemy completely unlike anything they have fought before. Most of the population flees. Some barricade themselves in the Capitoline Hill, the most defensible part of the city. The Gauls pour through the streets, looting, burning, occupying. For months, they hold Rome hostage. Eventually, a massive ransom in gold is paid, and the Gauls finally leave, laden with treasure. This disaster, this humiliation, burns itself into Roman memory. For generations afterward, Romans remember the year the Gauls came. They remember the terror. They remember the shame of paying ransom to barbarians. But they also remember what those barbarians looked like. Those pale warriors with their strange light hair become the template for how Romans think about the peoples of the north. Fast forward now. Jump ahead several generations. Rome recovers from the Gallic sack and begins its long expansion. Romans push north. They conquer the Italian Celts, those Gallic tribes that settled in what becomes known as Cisalpine Gaul. With conquest comes captives. With captives comes a much closer look at these blonde and red-haired peoples. Roman soldiers see Celtic women for the first time. They are not just warriors and raiders. They are mothers, daughters, craftswomen. And some of them are beautiful by any standard, with their unusual coloring, adding an exotic appeal. Captives are taken as slaves. The first blonde-haired slaves appear in Roman markets. They are curiosities. They are different. And in Roman culture, where Greek standards of beauty have long held sway, where dark Mediterranean looks are the norm, these northern slaves offer something entirely new. Already, you can see the seeds being planted. The association of blonde hair with the exotic, with the conquered, with the foreign, and therefore desirable. This is not yet a full-blown cultural obsession. That comes later. But the groundwork is being laid, built on conquest and captivity, on the Roman tendency to absorb and adopt from the peoples they subjugate. You feel yourself settling deeper now. The story is beginning to take shape. You can sense where this is going. But the details are what make history come alive. Your breathing has slowed just a bit. The modern world feels even more distant. You are ready to move deeper into this story, to see how a military disaster and subsequent conquests begin to reshape Roman ideas about beauty itself. You move forward now to the middle of the 1st century, before the Common Era. Rome has grown enormously. It controls all of Italy, all of Spain, North Africa, Greece, much of Asia Minor. The Republic is wealthy beyond imagination. Slaves pour into Italy by the tens of thousands from every corner of the Mediterranean. And with them come new goods, new ideas, new fashions. The slave markets of Rome are fascinating places, if deeply disturbing by modern standards. Imagine yourself walking through the Forum Boarium, the cattle market that also serves as a major slave market. You are not here to buy. You are simply observing. All around you, human beings stand on platforms while auctioneers shout their qualities. Strong men from Thrace for mining work, educated Greeks for tutoring positions, skilled craftsmen from every province, and increasingly, fair-skinned slaves from the north. You notice something interesting. When a blonde slave is brought forward, especially a woman, the bidding becomes more animated. There is something about that golden hair that catches attention. These slaves are not necessarily more skilled or stronger, but they have rarity value. In a market flooded with dark-haired Mediterranean slaves, a blonde stands out. And in fight, standing out has value. Wealthy Roman matrons begin to purchase blonde female slaves for household service. Partly this is practical. Every household needs servants. But partly it is about status. Having a blonde slave is like having an exotic pet. It shows you can afford something unusual. It marks you as wealthy enough to indulge in novelties. When guests come to your house and see your blonde Germanic slave girl serving wine, they know you have money to spend on non-essentials. But something else is happening too. Roman women are starting to really look at these blonde slaves, not just as curiosities or status symbols. They are studying them. The hair especially. That golden color that seems to glow in the Mediterranean light. That completely different texture sometimes. The way it catches the eye and holds attention. Roman fashion has always been competitive. Wealthy women compete with each other in clothing, in jewelry, in hairstyles. The hairdo itself is a major status marker in Italy. Elaborate styles that require hours of work by trained slave hairdressers. Curls piled high, braids woven into complex patterns, hairpieces added for volume. The more complex your hairstyle, the more slaves you must own to create it, and therefore the wealthier you are. Now imagine being a Roman socialite in this era. You have dark brown hair like most Romans. Your hairstyle is elaborate, impressive, expensive to maintain. But every other wealthy Roman woman also has elaborate dark hair. How do you stand out? How do you become the talk of dinner parties? One answer, which begins to emerge in this period, is color. Not just style, but color. Some bold Roman women begin to experiment. They ask their hairdressers, many of whom are Greek slaves with knowledge of various cosmetic techniques, if there is any way to lighten hair. The Greeks know some tricks. They have recipes passed down through generations. Mixtures of plant extracts, of minerals, of various substances that might, just might, lighten dark hair to brown, or brown hair to an almost golden tone. These early attempts are crude. They often damage the hair. Sometimes they create strange orange or greenish tints rather than true blonde. But the very fact that Roman women are trying tells you something. The desire is there. The fascination with that northern golden hair has moved from simple curiosity to active emulation. And then Julius Caesar launches his campaigns in Gaul. The year is 58 before the Common Era. Caesar, brilliant and ambitious, takes command of Roman forces in southern Gaul with the intention of conquering the entire region. What follows is 8 years of brutal warfare. Caesar leads his legions through modern France into Belgium, across the Rhine into Germania, even makes 2 expeditions to Britain. His memoirs of these campaigns become one of the most famous works in Latin literature. But for our purposes, what matters is what Caesar brings back. Treasure, yes. Glory, certainly. But also captives. Tens of thousands of captives. Gauls, Belgians, Germans, Britons. And many of these captives have blonde hair. The first large-scale influx of northern slaves into Rome comes from Caesar's conquests. The slave markets are flooded with Gallic and Germanic people. Prices for blonde slaves actually drop temporarily because supply exceeds demand. You can picture the scene. Roman slave merchants doing calculations. They had been selling blonde slaves at premium prices due to scarcity. Now, Caesar has glutted the market. But they are clever businessmen. They begin to market these slaves differently, not just as curiosities now, but as fashionable accessories. They emphasize beauty. They style the slave's hair to show it off. They dress them in ways that highlight their exotic appearance. Roman men returning from Gaul with Caesar's armies have stories to tell. They describe the lands they saw, the endless forests, the cold rivers, the different way of life, and they describe the women. Tall Germanic women with hair like gold and amber. Celtic women with elaborate hairstyles in their natural blonde or red. These descriptions circulate through Rome. They create a mental image of northern women as distinctly beautiful in their difference. Some legionaries have brought back souvenirs beyond just loot and glory. They have brought back relationships with northern women, some forced, some perhaps more willing, given the circumstances of conquest. These women, now living in Rome as concubines or secondary wives, become visible in Roman society. Their bond children play in Roman streets. The genetic mixing begins. Poets start to take notice. Roman poetry is highly developed by this era. Poets write about love, about beauty, about desire. And now they begin to include references to blonde hair in their verses. It appears in metaphors. Hair like golden fleece. Hair the color of ripe grain. Hair touched by the sun god himself. These poetic images start to shape how Romans think about blonde hair. It is becoming not just foreign, but beautiful. Not just different, but desirable. You feel the threads of this story beginning to weave together. The military conquest that brings thousands of blonde captives into Rome. The slave markets that turn human difference into commodity. The wealthy women who see something they want and begin to scheme how to get it. The poets who give cultural weight to a color preference. All of these elements are combining to create something new in Roman culture. An aesthetic preference that will shape fashion, trade, and social dynamics for centuries to come. You are in Rome now, during the time of Augustus, the first emperor. It is the end of the 1st century before the Common Era, and the beginning of the 1st century of the Common Era. The Republic has fallen. The Empire has risen. Rome is transforming into something magnificent. Marble temples gleam on every hill. Public buildings of breathtaking size and beauty are being constructed. The population of the city swells past 1 million people, making it by far the largest city in the Western world. Augustus is doing more than building monuments. He is building an ideology. He wants Romans to return to traditional values. He passes laws about marriage and adultery. He promotes the idea of the virtuous Roman matron, faithful and modest. He commissions art and literature that celebrates Roman greatness. And yet, despite these attempts to control Roman morality and fashion, trends are shifting beneath the surface. The fascination with blonde hair has moved beyond a mere curiosity. It is becoming a genuine fashion trend among wealthy Roman women. You can see evidence of this in the art of the period. Portrait busts and frescoes begin to show some women with lighter hair than was typical before. This might be artistic liberty, or it might reflect the reality that more women are finding ways to lighten their hair. The methods for hair lightening have improved. Greek and Roman cosmetologists, working with better funding from wealthy patrons, have developed more effective recipes. They use various combinations of ingredients, saffron for instance, which can give a golden tint, ashes from certain woods mixed with oils, vinegar and lemon juice for gradual lightening, flower petals steeped in solutions. The results are still imperfect by modern standards. The hair often becomes dry and brittle. The color might be uneven. But determined women accept these side effects for the sake of fashion. There is something interesting happening socially here. In Roman culture, prostitutes have long used hair color as part of their professional appearance. By law in some periods, prostitutes must dye their hair to distinguish themselves from respectable women. And often they choose blonde or red, partly because these colors are eye-catching, and partly because they can charge more for appearing exotic. So there is a class association developing. Blonde hair means either foreign slave or prostitute. But wealthy Roman matrons want blonde hair too. They do not want to be mistaken for prostitutes, so they are careful about how they present themselves. They still maintain all the other markers of respectability. The proper clothing, the proper demeanor, the proper accompaniment of slaves when they go out in public. They are saying, in effect, yes, I have blonde hair, but see how obviously I am a respectable matron, not a working woman. It is a delicate social dance. Men are watching these changes with mixed feelings. Conservative Roman men, the type who agree with Augustus about returning to traditional values, disapprove of women changing their hair color. They write stern letters and essays about how dyeing hair is a sign of moral decay, how a proper Roman woman should be content with the hair color the gods gave her, how this obsession with looking northern is anti-patriotic and shameful. But other Roman men, perhaps younger ones, or ones less concerned with traditional morality, find the blonde hair attractive. They write poems praising it. They make it clear in social settings that they admire women who have taken the effort to lighten their hair. This creates a feedback loop. Women see that some men react positively to blonde hair. More women try to achieve the look. More men express appreciation. The fashion spreads. Meanwhile, the alternative to dyeing is becoming more accessible. Wigs. Roman wig making is developing into a sophisticated craft. Initially, wigs are used primarily to cover baldness or thinning hair, especially in older men. But they quickly become a fashion accessory for women as well. And here is where the connection to northern captives becomes direct and disturbing. The best blonde wigs are made from real human hair. And where does that hair come from? From northern slaves. Germanic women who are captured and enslaved sometimes have their hair cut off to make wigs for Roman ladies. This happens either immediately upon capture, as their hair is seen as a valuable commodity in itself, or later if they are in household service and their owner decides their hair is worth more cut than attached. Think about what this means. A Roman matron might literally wear the hair of a Germanic slave woman on her head. She might go to dinner parties, to the theater, to the baths, wearing hair that was cut from a woman now working in some other household, or sold away, or perhaps even dead. The fashion item carries with it the violence of conquest and enslavement, though of course the Roman wearing it does not think about that. She thinks only about how she looks, how others perceive her. The wig trade becomes substantial. Merchants specialize in importing hair from the northern provinces, he says. The best hair, the most prized, comes from free Germanic women living beyond the empire's borders. Some of these women sell their hair voluntarily for money. Others have it taken in raids. Either way, it ends up in Rome, being styled into elaborate wigs that can cost a small fortune. There is even a specialized class of slave, the ornatrix. This is a female slave whose job is specifically to do hair. The best ornatrices are highly valued and can cost far more than a typical slave. They know all the techniques. How to dye hair with minimal damage. How to set elaborate curls. How to attach hair pieces and wigs securely. How to maintain the health of the hair, despite all the styling. A skilled ornatrix is essential for any wealthy household. Some of these ornatrices are themselves blonde. A Germanic woman with knowledge of hairstyling, even rudimentary knowledge, can find herself in a relatively privileged position in a Roman household. She still has no freedom. She can still be sold or punished at her owner's whim. But she has a skill that is valued, and that provides a small measure of security. You will begin to see how complex this whole phenomenon has become. It is not just about beauty standards. It involves conquest and slavery. It involves economics and trade networks. It involves social class and respectability. It involves professional specialization and craft knowledge. Blonde hair in Rome is never just hair. It is a marker of empire, of the reach of Roman power into the north, of the cultural mixing that comes with conquest, of the fashion industry that develops to serve the wealthy. You are moving through the 1st century now. Emperors come and go. Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero. Each reign brings its own dramas and intrigues. The empire continues to expand. Britain is conquered under Claudius. Germania is repeatedly invaded, though never fully conquered. The northern frontier becomes a permanent feature of Roman life. Legions are stationed along the Rhine and Danube rivers, facing Germanic tribes across the water. This permanent frontier creates something new, a sustained contact zone between Roman and Germanic cultures. Roman soldiers spend years, sometimes their entire careers, stationed in these frontier provinces. They interact daily with Germanic peoples, sometimes as enemies in warfare, sometimes as trading partners, sometimes in more intimate ways. Children are born from these interactions. People move back and forth, though much more commonly from north to south than the reverse. The hair trade becomes institutionalized. Merchants set up regular trade routes, specifically for importing hair from beyond the frontier. They work with Germanic chiefs who collect hair from their tribespeople and sell it for Roman goods. Iron tools, wine, ganices, textiles, and luxury items flow north. Hair, amber, furs, and silex flow south. It is a regular commercial relationship, not so different from trade in any other commodity. In Rome itself, the fashion for blonde hair has become firmly established. It is no longer shocking or particularly exotic. It is simply one option among several for how a fashionable woman might style herself. You can walk through the streets of Rome and see perhaps 1 in every 10 wealthy women with lightened hair or wearing a blonde wig. The novelty has worn off, but the preference remains. Poets continue to write about blonde hair, but now it is part of the standard repertoire of beauty descriptions. A poet might praise a woman's golden locks in one poem, and her dark tresses in another, depending on the specific woman he is describing or fantasizing about. Blonde has become part of the Roman concept of beauty, not replacing dark hair, but complementing it, offering variety. The technology of hair dyeing has improved significantly. Wealthy women can now achieve relatively convincing blonde tones without destroying their hair, though it still requires regular treatment and careful maintenance. The recipes are being refined through trial and error, different combinations of ingredients for different effects. Some produce a pale golden blonde. Others create a reddish gold. Some work better on dark hair, some on already light hair. One particularly important development is the use of a soap that comes from Germania itself. The Germanic peoples make a soap from animal fats and wood ashes that has the side effect of lightening hair. Roman merchants discover this and begin importing it, specifically for cosmetic purposes. It becomes quite popular because it is seen as more natural than the various dye concoctions. You are not dyeing your hair with chemicals. You are simply washing it with soap. And if it happens to lighten gradually over time, well, that is just a happy accident. The emperors themselves become involved in these fashion trends. Not directly, but their wives and daughters set trends that others follow. When an empress appears in public with a new hairstyle, every wealthy woman in Rome wants to copy it. If that hairstyle involves blonde hair, then demand for hair lightening services and blonde wigs spikes immediately. One story that circulates concerns Messalina, the third wife of the emperor Claudius. Messalina is notorious for many things, mostly related to her alleged sexual appetites and political scheming. But she is also remembered for wearing blonde wigs when she wanted to go out in disguise. The story goes that she would put on a blonde wig and plain clothing and sneak out of the palace to visit brothels and taverns, places no empress should be seen. Whether this story is true or exaggerated or completely invented, it tells you something about Roman attitudes. Blonde hair is associated with disguise, with pretending to be something you are not. For an empress, putting on a blonde wig means pretending to be a common woman, or even a prostitute. The blonde hair is a costume, a way to hide her real identity. This association, blonde equals not quite respectable, persists even as respectable women increasingly wear blonde. But there is another side to this. Men of the upper classes sometimes patronize blonde prostitutes, specifically because they find that hair color exotic and arousing. The brothels of Rome make sure to have at least some blonde women available, knowing that certain clients will pay extra for the experience. Some of these women are naturally blonde, slaves from Germania. Others have dyed their hair. Either way, they are filling a market demand. You can see how this creates a strange dynamic. Blonde hair is fashionable among respectable women. It is also associated with prostitutes. It is exotic and desirable. It is also common enough that it is no longer shocking. These contradictions exist simultaneously in Roman culture. Fashion is rarely logical. It is about feeling, about status, about the complex interplay of desire and social acceptability. The military continues to play a role in all of this. Every campaign into Germania brings back captives. Some of these captives are sold into slavery in the usual way, but some are taken as war brides or concubines by soldiers and officers. Germanic women living in Roman military camps along the frontier become a common sight. Their children grow up speaking Latin, worshiping Roman gods, but carrying genes that give them lighter hair and eyes than pure Mediterranean Romans. Over time, this mixing begins to change the appearance of Romans themselves, especially in the northern provinces. Go to a city like Cologne or Trier in the Rhineland, and you will see Romans who look quite different from Romans in, say, Sicily or Greece. Taller on average, lighter hair and eyes more common. This is the genetic legacy of centuries of interaction, both violent and peaceful, between Romans and Germanic peoples. The fashion for blonde hair is not universal, of course. Many Roman women, perhaps even most, keep their natural dark hair. Some because they prefer it. Some because they cannot afford the expense of dyeing or wigs. Some because they or their husbands believe in traditional values and reject these foreign-influenced fashions. Regional variation matters too. Blonde hair is more fashionable in Rome itself and other major cities than in rural areas. It is more common among the wealthy than the poor. It is a marker of urbanity and sophistication. You find yourself now in the middle of the 1st century, during the reign of Nero. This is a fascinating period for understanding Roman beauty culture because it is so well documented. Nero himself is notorious for many things, but one aspect of his reign that is less discussed is the explosion of luxury goods and fashion experimentation that happens under his rule. Nero loves theater and spectacle. He encourages extravagance. The wealthy of Rome, taking their cue from the emperor, compete to outdo each other in conspicuous consumption. Cosmetics become more sophisticated. There are shops in Rome that specialize in beauty products. You can walk in and find shelves stocked with various preparations. Creams for the skin, powders for the face, kohl for the eyes, perfumes from across the empire. And yes, many products specifically for the hair. Dyes in various shades, oils to condition and shine, preparations to repair damage from dyeing. The beauty industry is thriving. The recipes for hair lightening become more refined. One popular method involves a mixture of quicklime and water, carefully applied to avoid burning the scalp. Another uses a paste made from goat fat and beechwood ashes, left on the hair for several hours. Yet another involves repeated washing with a strong soap, and then exposure to sunlight, while the hair is coated in a special oil. Each method has its advocates and its drawbacks. Women who dye their hair regularly become skilled at managing the processes. They know how often to apply treatments. They know how to minimize damage. They develop routines for maintaining their color between applications. It becomes part of the rhythm of their lives. This regular attention to hair color, not so different from modern women who dye their hair and need regular root touch-ups. But wigs remain the preferred option for many. A good wig solves multiple problems. It allows for dramatic color change without damaging your natural hair. It can be styled elaborately without hours of discomfort. It can be changed out for different occasions. Have a dark wig for formal traditional events where you want to appear conservative. Have a blonde wig for fashionable dinner parties where you want to appear sophisticated and cosmopolitan. Have a red wig for, well, whatever occasions suit red hair. The wig makers form their own guild. They have workshops in Rome and other major cities. The process of making a wig is labor-intensive. The hair must be sorted by color and quality. It must be cleaned and treated. It must be tied or sewn onto a base, usually a cap made of fine netting. The best wigs use hair that is all the same length and color, creating a uniform appearance. Cheaper wigs mix different hair types and show obvious variations. The most expensive wigs are custom-made. A wealthy woman visits the wig maker and discusses exactly what she wants: the color, the length, the style. The wig maker takes measurements of her head. He shows her samples of available hair, letting her feel the texture and see the exact shades. An order is placed, and weeks later, the finished wig is delivered. It can cost as much as a slave. They see premium wigs. But for women who can afford it, the investment is worthwhile. There is even a resale market for used wigs. When a woman tires of a particular wig, or when fashion changes and she wants something new, she can sell her old wigs. They are refurbished and count to less wealthy buyers. This creates a hierarchy. The richest women have new custom wigs made from the finest hair. The moderately wealthy buy high-quality used wigs or new wigs made from less perfect hair. The barely wealthy might rent wigs for special occasions. And the poor, of course, have no wigs at all. Men are not entirely absent from this fashion, though their participation is less common. Some young fashionable men lighten their hair, either through dyeing or through the sun-bleaching technique. This is seen as somewhat effeminate by traditional Romans, but Nero himself is said to have had reddish blonde hair naturally, or through treatment, and his example makes it more acceptable. Still, hair dyeing remains primarily a female practice. The social dynamics around blonde hair become more complex during this period. There is a growing awareness that not all blonde hair is the same. Natural blonde hair, whether on a Germanic slave or a person of mixed ancestry, is seen as more valuable and authentic than dyed hair. Women who are naturally blonde, rare though they are among ethnic Romans, can command attention simply by displaying their natural color. They are living proof that blonde can be real, not just artifice. This creates a hierarchy of blonde. At the top, natural blonde hair on a free Roman woman. Extremely rare. Extremely valued. Next, natural blonde hair on a Germanic free woman or freed slave. Real, but foreign. Then, blonde wigs made from premium northern hair. Expensive artificial authenticity. Below that, chemically dyed hair in blonde shades. Obvious artifice, but still fashionable. At the bottom, cheap wigs or poorly done dye jobs that achieve odd colors like orange or green. Failed attempts at the trend. The satirists have a field day with all of this. Roman satire is biting and often cruel. Satirists mock women who dye their hair, suggesting their morals are as artificial as their color. They mock men who find dyed hair attractive, calling them shallow and easily deceived. They mock the whole society for becoming obsessed with something as trivial as hair color, when Rome faces real problems like political corruption and military threats. But satire does not stop fashion. If anything, being mocked might make something more fashionable, proof that you are bold enough to ignore conventional wisdom. Medical writers weigh in too. They warn about the dangers of hair dye. Some of the chemicals used are toxic. Lead, for instance, appears in various cosmetic preparations, including some hair treatments. Extended exposure can cause health problems. Hair dyes can cause scalp irritation, burns, hair loss. The warnings are there, available to anyone who can read or who has access to medical advice. But fashion wins over health concerns for many people. Then, as now, the 2nd century arrives. The empire reaches its greatest territorial extent under the Emperor Trajan. Then comes Hadrian, who builds walls and travels constantly. Then the Antonine emperors, presiding over what historians will call the height of Roman prosperity. These are good times for the emperor. Trade flourishes, cities grow, art and literature thrive, and the fashion for blonde hair continues. By now, several generations of Romans have grown up in a world where blonde hair is a normal part of the beauty landscape. It is no longer a novelty. It is tradition, or at least familiar practice. Grandmothers tell their granddaughters about the recipes they used to lighten their hair when they were young. Professional hair dyers pass their knowledge to apprentice. Tonight we are embarking on something special. A full 4-hour journey through the frozen world of Viking seafaring. Yeah, you heard that right. 4 hours. Most of you will not make it past hour 2. And honestly, that is the point. We are diving deep into how these ancient warriors survived on icy seas without the comfort of fire. No roaring flames, no cozy campfires. Just human ingenuity, wool, breath, and an unbreakable will to endure. Picture this. You are standing at the edge of a Norwegian fjord in the year 1014. Dawn breaks cold and copper-colored across black water. Frost covers every surface like a second skin. The longship before you rocks gently, its dragon head carved from oak, teeth bared at the horizon. Steam rises from your mouth with each breath. Your boots crunch on frozen mud. The air smells of salt and iron and pine smoke from the village behind you. But that smoke, that comfort, will soon be nothing but memory. So before you get comfortable, and I mean really comfortable because we are in for the long haul, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. I see you. 3 a.m. squad. For those using this for sleep, I have designed the pacing to gradually slow over our 4 hours together. Hour 1 will keep you engaged. Hour 2 starts the descent. And by hours 3 and 4, well, sweet dreams. Now dim those lights. Set your sleep timer if you are wise. Maybe turn on that fan for white noise. And let us ease into tonight's marathon journey together. You step aboard the longship. The wood beneath your feet is slick with morning ice. Around you, Viking sailors move with quiet efficiency. They haul ropes, check knots, arrange supplies. Each man wears layers of wool and fur. Their beards glisten with frost. Their eyes are sharp and focused. These are not the Hollywood Vikings you might imagine. These are practical engineers of survival. They know the sea can kill faster than any sword. The ship itself is a marvel. Built from overlapping planks of oak, each piece fitted perfectly to the next. This design is called clinker construction. It makes the hull flexible, allowing it to bend with the waves, rather than break against them. The wood has been soaked in pine tar to seal the gaps. It smells strong and sweet. Every surface gleams with oil. The mast rises tall, its sail furled and waiting. Ropes crisscross the deck like a spider's web. Everything has purpose. Nothing is wasted. You find a place near the middle of the ship and settle onto a wooden bench. The cold seeps through your clothing immediately. You can feel it in your bones, sharp and insistent. One of the sailors passes you a wool cloak. It is thick and rough, smelling of smoke and lanolin. You wrap it around your shoulders. The weight feels good, grounding. The sailor nods and moves on without speaking. The captain stands at the stern, one hand on the tiller. He is older than the others, his beard streaked with gray. His face is weathered like old leather. He surveys his crew with calm authority. When he speaks, his voice carries clearly across the deck. He tells them to prepare for departure. The men respond instantly. Oars are lowered into the water. The rhythmic splash begins. The ship lurches forward, pulling away from the dock. Behind you, the village grows smaller. Women and children wave from the shore. Smoke continues to rise from their hearths. curling into the pale sky you watch, until the figures become dots. Then nothing. The smell of smoke fades. The temperature drops noticeably. The wind picks up, carrying spray from the bow. Your face stings. You pull the cloak tighter. The sea ahead looks endless. Gray water merges with gray sky at the horizon. Ice floats in patches, white against the dark surface. The ship cuts through it, with a sound like breaking glass. The sailors row in perfect unison. Their breath rises in clouds. Steam drifts from their bodies. Despite the cold, they are sweating from the effort. This is the first lesson. Movement creates heat. Stillness invites death. You notice there is no fear anywhere on the ship. No brazier. No lantern with open flame. The absence feels strange, almost wrong. Fire is life. Fire is safety. Yet here on this wooden vessel, fire is the enemy. One spark could race through the tar-soaked planks and turn the entire ship into a floating funeral pyre. The Vikings learned this lesson through tragedy. Now they survive without it. As the morning wears on, you begin to understand the magnitude of what lies ahead. Weeks at sea, maybe months. Temperatures that can freeze a man, solid in hours. Storms that can appear without warning. Waves tall enough to swallow the ship whole. And through it all, no fire, no easy warmth. Just the collective knowledge of generations who refuse to let the cold win. This is their story. This is how they did it. The danger of fire at sea was not theoretical for the Vikings. It was written in blood and ash across their history. You learn this as the ship moves further from land, as the last traces of coastal smoke disappear behind you. The sailors speak in low voices about ships that burned. Their words carry the weight of true stories, passed down through families, through generations. These are not myths. These are warnings. One of the older crew members settles beside you. His name is Bjorn. He has sailed these waters for 40 years. His hands are scarred and weathered, fingers thick as rope. He tells you about a voyage he witnessed as a young man. A crew of 25 men, eager to reach the trading posts before winter. They were 3 days out when someone made a terrible mistake. A small oil lamp, carefully shielded, tipped during a sudden swell. The flame caught a coil of rope. Bjorn's voice drops as he describes what happened next. The fire spread faster than anyone could react. It raced along the deck, found the tar-sealed planks, and exploded into an inferno. Men jumped into water so cold it stopped their hearts before they could drown. Others burned where they stood, trapped by flames on all sides. The ship sank within minutes, taking everything with it. Only 2 men survived. They washed ashore days later, more dead than alive, skin blackened by burns and frostbite both. They never sailed again. This story is not unique. Bjorn knows of 6 other ships lost to fire in his lifetime. Each time, the cause was the same: overconfidence, a moment of carelessness, the belief that fire could be controlled in an environment designed to burn. The Vikings learned through tragedy that fire and wooden ships are mortal enemies. No matter how careful you are, no matter how many precautions you take, the risk is too great. As you look around the deck with new understanding, every surface is vulnerable. The planks beneath your feet, soaked in flammable tar. The ropes overhead, dried by salt and sun. The sail, coated with animal fat to repel water. The cargo below, barrels of oil and dried goods. Even the wool clothing everyone wears would burn readily if given the chance. The entire ship is kindling, waiting for a spark. So fire was forbidden. Not just discouraged, but absolutely banned from open use while at sea. This was not a suggestion. It was law, enforced by captains with iron discipline. Any man who endangered the ship with flame faced immediate consequences. In some cases, he was thrown overboard. The crew's survival depended on absolute adherence to this rule. No exceptions, no second chances. But here is the problem. The North Atlantic in winter is one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Temperatures regularly drop below freezing. Wind cuts through any clothing. Water spray freezes instantly on contact, coating everything in ice. Without fire, how do you survive? How do you keep your fingers from freezing solid? How do you prevent frostbite from claiming your feet, your nose, your ears? How do you maintain core body temperature during weeks at sea? The answer lies in knowledge accumulated over centuries. The Vikings did not conquer the cold through brute. Now, dim those lights. Set your sleep timer if you are wise. Maybe turn on that fan for white noise. And let us ease into tonight's marathon journey together. Picture yourself standing in ancient Rome in the year 115. You are walking through the crowded streets of the Suburra district. The afternoon sun beats down on the brick and marble buildings all around you. The air smells of bread baking, of fish sauce fermenting in ceramic jars, of incense drifting from a nearby temple. You hear the constant chatter of Latin voices, the clatter of wooden cartwheels on stone pavement, the distant hammering of construction workers building yet another monument to imperial glory. And then you see her, a woman walking past you, surrounded by attendants. She is clearly wealthy, judging by the fine wool of her stola, the jewelry glinting at her throat and wrists. But what stops you? What makes you turn your head like everyone else in the street is her hair. It cascades down her back in waves of pure gold. Blonde hair, almost luminous in the Mediterranean sunlight. Hair that seems impossibly foreign in a city where nearly everyone has dark brown or black hair. You watch as she passes, and you notice something. The people in the street are not just looking. They are staring. Some with admiration, some with envy, others with something that looks like desire mixed with disdain. And you realize that this blonde hair, so different from what you are used to seeing, means something here. It carries weight. It tells a story about status and fashion, and the reach of Roman power. This moment, this simple glimpse of a blonde Roman woman, opens up an entire world of questions. Where did this fascination come from? How did Romans, who were predominantly dark-haired, develop such an obsession with blonde hair? Was it truly an obsession, or is that just our modern interpretation? And what does it tell us about Roman society? About their values, their conquests, their complex relationship with the peoples they subjugated? Tonight, we are going to answer all of these questions. We will travel from the forests of Germania to the slave markets of Phi, from the tents of Julius Caesar during the Gallic Wars to the private chambers of empresses and prostitutes alike. We will learn about the chemicals Romans used to bleach their hair, about the vast trade networks that brought blonde wigs from the far north, about the poems that praised golden locks, and the social implications of choosing to wear blonde. You settle into this journey now. You feel your body relaxing.